This is D'Amico Merriweather with a brief history of education. The earliest civilization is believed to have started in the Middle East in 3000 BCE. Mesopotamia and Egypt, these civilizations flourished almost simultaneously, and education was an integral part of those societies. Knowledge is power, and knowledge was controlled by the governing bodies in these times. It made education integral. It made the people who were educated indispensable. During the Dark Ages, the church governed who would be able to learn and who would be able to learn what. Knowledge was a very dangerous thing. Anybody who was caught teaching, or anyone who was believed to know things that they were not supposed to know by decree of the kings, were sought, hunted down, and killed. This is the power of education. In more modern times, in colonial America, education was not organized. In colonial America, there were few forms of formal education. Dame schools were used to teach children the skills that they needed. The children would go to these places and live for a few weeks, sometimes months out of the year. Girls were taught how to sew and cook and clean, and their education ended with the completion of a sampler. A sampler is a physical display of their domestic abilities. It was the only diploma that a woman would ever need, as their education was stopped there. Boys, however, were given the fundamentals and rudimentary parts of arithmetic, language, science, history, and they were allowed to continue their education, and that education was centered around religion. The children were in a situation where the core beliefs were to teach them about God and recite whole verses. Education became more important in America as time passed after the American Revolution, except for blacks. Blacks were not allowed to be educated with whites until Plessy versus Ferguson. This allowed blacks and whites to come together. But the most important era of education for me was during World War I, where inside the curricula, the core curricula, was anti-German propaganda. This is so important because this shows that our governing bodies will teach our children how to perpetuate hate, how to understand a situation from the perspective of fear. Our children were terrified in this era. They thought at any given point a nuclear bomb would drop on them, and the dirty, disgusting, evil Germans were the ones that would do it. They did drills. They had propaganda posters inside classrooms. The children literally sat for most of the day and listened to the dangers of the Germans, listened to the dangers of nuclear war, and how nuclear deterrence was not an issue at this point. How at any given moment their lives could end, everything around them could be destroyed in the blink of an eye. This was education. This was what our government thought that our kids needed. Not arithmetic, not science, not language, not history, not arts, but fear. Our children were conditioned. They were conditioned physically and mentally to prepare for harsh situations because of the Germans. They were taught to be turtles. At any given moment, they were to run under their desk like turtles because the Germans were coming. This is propaganda in the midst of curricula. The students were conditioned in a way to where those with questions were chastised. You were to assimilate to the system, and if you didn't, you would quickly be reprimanded. Life would end without warning. The children were told that their fathers and mothers fought valiantly from the evil presences. Every day, the threat of the Germans was alive and well. At any given time, they were told to run into buildings, to hide, to drop everything they had, These drills were more important in the curricula than actual former things like math and sciences. Propaganda posters were posted throughout the school. Here's some of my favorites. Destroy this mad brute. Now that is another beat back the Han. Liberty bonds. A good month's business. Devils, German devils eating babies, women, and children. Thank you for your time. This was a brief history of education from the eyes of D'Amico Merriweather.